Ralphie had been 17, fresh from a youth square dance in a billowy blue check dress and white Mary Janes when he stopped at the malt shop. Andrea had been there, striking even then, wearing a cardigan and eyeing his nylon legs with a shy, uncertain smile. He had giggled, she had blushed, and from that blush, a love story blossomed. Now here he was, Mrs. Ralphie Lawrence, wife, mother, homemaker. Life had worked out beautifully. The mall felt emptier these days. Gone were the noisy clusters of teen girls, the giggling boys walking arm in arm, the click-clack of countless heels. The silence made the echo of his own steps sound almost theatrical. He visited a boutique, but found little for someone with curves. Everything seemed cut for the skinny boys who hadn't filled out yet. The clerk, overdone makeup, a run in his pantyhose and clear boredom, half-heartedly offered a mini dress, which Ralphie politely declined. Still, he found a lovely pair of ankle-strap dress sandals that were simply too cute to pass up. After a bit more browsing, Ralphie headed to his favorite nail salon, eager for some pampering. He was delighted to see that Howie Hansen was working today. Howie had come to Meriden after high school, lured by rumors of a town that aligned with his dreams. He had been awkward at first, short hair, clumsy makeup, dresses that never quite fit, but his spirit was undeniable. Ralphie, a member of the welcoming committee, had vouched for him. Now Howie was a shining example of Meriden's success. Radiant, confident, impeccably dressed, his every gesture as fluid and feminine as anyone born in the town. His red lips parted in a wide smile when Ralphie walked in. "Hi, Mrs. Lawrence. So nice to see you," Howie beamed, reaching out to touch Ralphie's arm. "You're looking as lovely as ever." "Thanks, Howie. You're looking very pretty yourself. And those shoes? Darling." As Ralphie settled into the chair, Howie began tending to his nails. Noticing something sparkling on Howie's hand, Ralphie asked, "Is that what I think it is?" Howie lit up. "It sure is. Myra asked me last week. It was so romantic. She got down on one knee and everything." He giggled, glowing with joy. "Mrs. Howie Banks, I've already started practicing my new signature. So much to plan. Dresses, bridesmaids, venues. Jeffy's going to be my maid of honor." "I love it," Ralphie smiled, letting the happiness of the moment settle around him like perfume. He recalled being a flower boy at his uncle's wedding, just 8 years old and proud in his miniature bridal outfit. It had been the first time he was allowed to wear heels and pantyhose. He remembered dreaming of the day he would be the bride. And when that day came, it was perfect. Terry, Marky, and Jimmy had stood by him in lavender dresses. Andrea had been stunning, lifting Ralphie's veil to kiss him as time itself seemed to pause. Yes, every boy deserved a moment like that. With his French manicure complete, Ralphie thanked Howie and made his way out. It was nearly time for the boys to come home from school. But as he exited the mall, the unease returned. He spotted an outsider immediately. A woman, though from a distance, she might have been mistaken for a man. She wore makeup, a dress, even hose and heels. But it was all wrong. She didn't belong. Such a pity, Ralphie thought. She could be quite attractive if she weren't so clearly uncomfortable in her femininity. She approached. "Oh my God, it's really true," she gasped. "Ron told me, but I never would have believed it. I don't understand. What makes a man do this? Aren't you uncomfortable?" Ralphie rolled his eyes, replying coolly, "I might ask the same of you." He sighed. "Yes, it's true. Women run the town. Naturally, women are the superior sex. A man should be obedient, devoted to his wife's will. Maybe one day you outsiders will come to your senses, for the good of womankind." "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to offend. You don't look bad, really. You're quite pretty." "Thank you, madam. Now, good day." He turned sharply and walked away, trying to forget the encounter, but the woman lingered in his mind. She was unsettling, strong-jawed and uncertain, awkward in her posture. At least she wasn't a male outsider. Ralphie found them worse, coarse, clumsy, uncivilized. Best to put the entire exchange behind him and get home to his family. Later that evening, Ralphie was in a contemplative mood as he put away dishes. Richie noticed. "What's wrong, Dad?" he asked, eyes full of concern. "Nothing, honey," Ralphie said softly, looking him over. Richie wore a rose-colored house dress with matching nails, white pumps, and his hair pulled up to show off his delicate neck. His makeup, subtle but effective, brought out the beauty of his eyes and lips. Ralphie smiled. "You're growing up to be a beautiful young man?" Richie grinned and hugged him. "I guess I take after my dad. But be warned, once you start developing this skill, there's no going back. You'll see what people are trying to hide. You'll feel the discomfort behind a smile, the fear beneath a harsh tone, and the quiet panic in a fine. You'll see how conversations veer off course not because of logic, but because of unmet emotional needs. You'll become aware of how insecurity masquerades as arrogance, how emotional wounds disguise themselves as coldness or control. And most importantly, you'll know what to do in those moments. You'll stop missing signs. You'll stop taking things personally that have nothing to do with you. You'll move through the world with a sense of emotional clarity and grounded presence that others will notice, even if they can't explain it. This book is for those ready to evolve, past awkwardness, beyond burnout, through the fog of self-doubt. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, ambitious or anxious, climbing the ladder or rebuilding your confidence, this journey meets you where you are. Because developing social intelligence doesn't require you to become someone you're not. It asks you to become more fully who you already are, but with greater skill, awareness, and power. And in this world, that's not optional, that's essential. So here's your challenge. What if, by the end of this book, you could walk into any room, meet any person, and know how to connect? What if you could lead without force, influence without manipulation, and be fully at ease in your own skin, knowing you can navigate whatever social landscape appears before you? If that vision sparks even a hint of curiosity, then keep listening, because what you're about to learn will shift how you think, speak, and move through every interaction you encounter. This is the beginning of your transformation. Let's dive in. The social brain. Understanding the full power of social intelligence requires us to take a step back, not into theory or philosophy, but into biology. Because the truth is, human beings are not just rational thinkers. We are biologically hardwired to connect. Our brains are not simply designed to analyze or calculate. They are built fundamentally to engage with other people. We are social animals down to our neural core. This is not some metaphorical claim. It is a scientific reality. The architecture of your brain has evolved over millions of years to decode and respond to social information. That capacity is what we call the social brain. To appreciate how deeply this system governs your life, consider this. Every time you greet a friend, meet a colleague, negotiate with a client, or share a moment of silence with someone you love, your brain is performing a silent symphony. It's reading posture, decoding tone, scanning facial expressions, registering eye movement, and interpreting pauses. All of this happens in milliseconds. We often think of communication as an exchange of words, but your brain knows better. The true meaning of most interactions lives in everything unspoken, and your brain, if trained, is capable of decoding all of it. But this didn't emerge randomly. Our social brains are the result of survival, cooperation, and millions of years of evolution. Early humans didn't survive alone. They thrived through community, through shared signals, unspoken alliances, subtle hierarchies, and silent warning signs. The ability to sense danger, feel connection, or read disapproval was not optional. It was essential to stay alive. Over time, our brains developed specialized regions to manage this growing complexity. The prefrontal cortex for planning and social judgment, the amygdala for emotional threat detection, the insula for visceral empathy, and mirror neurons for intuitive understanding of others. Take mirror neurons, for example. These special cells activate not only when we act, but when we see someone else act. If you watch someone stub their toe and wince, your mirror neurons fire almost as if it happened to you. This system is the neural basis for empathy. It allows us to feel what others feel. When someone cries and you choke up too, that's mirror neurons at work. They are the reason laughter is contagious and why we instinctively mimic someone's body language without thinking. They are part of the silent conversation we're always having beneath the surface. Another crucial region is the prefrontal cortex. Located at the front of the brain, the PFC is where we evaluate situations, consider consequences, and regulate impulses. It's what helps you pause before interrupting, decide whether a joke is appropriate, or determine if someone's enthusiasm is genuine. It interprets tone, body language, and emotion all at once, and does so in seconds. Think of it as the CEO of social decision-making. It doesn't just help you understand others. It helps you present the version of yourself that fits the moment. Then there's the amygdala, the emotional watchdog. Most people associate it with fear, and rightly so, but its role is broader. It flags emotional signals, tracks threats, and helps us respond to changes in mood or tone. If someone's posture stiffens or their voice hardens, your amygdala picks that up before you consciously realize it. This system is why some people sense tension in a room before anyone speaks. It also shapes memory. We remember emotionally charged interactions more clearly than neutral ones because the amygdala stores them with more intensity. That's part of how we learn socially, through repeated emotional feedback. Finally, we have the insula, a deep, lesser-known brain region that processes internal sensations. This is the seat of visceral empathy. When someone near you is anxious and your stomach knots for no reason, that's the insula. It's attuned to physical emotion, shame, embarrassment, warmth, fear. It's the signal you feel before your mind catches up, the chill when someone's being insincere, or the warmth when someone's presence feels safe. This layer of awareness is critical for emotional nuance. It helps us not just understand others, but truly feel with them. Together, these systems form the foundation of social intelligence. They govern everything from first impressions to long-term trust, from conflict resolution to leadership presence. And the more we understand how they work, the more we can train them to serve us. Because while these systems evolve naturally, they are not beyond our influence. With the right awareness and tools, we can refine these neural pathways, sharpen our ability to decode others, and regulate our own responses with greater clarity and compassion. In the next chapter, we'll explore the dynamic, often misunderstood world of empathy, what it really means, how it works neurologically, and how to use it with precision in everyday life. Because empathy is not just an emotion, it's a social instrument. And once you learn to wield it with intent, your relationships, influence, and confidence will never be the same. Empathy. It's a word so often used in self-help books and leadership seminars that it sometimes loses the gravity it deserves. Yet empathy remains one of the most critical, powerful components of social intelligence. Not just a soft emotional trait, but a dynamic force that shapes the quality and depth of every human connection we have. To be empathetic is not merely to feel sorry for someone or nod politely when they speak. It's the capacity to enter into another person's emotional world, to feel with them, not just for them. And although it often seems instinctive, empathy is neither passive nor automatic. It's an active engagement, a learned, trainable skill rooted in both biology and intentional practice. When fully developed, empathy becomes a kind of supersense, allowing us to tune into people in ways that transcend words, helping us navigate conflict, build trust, and connect at the level where real transformation begins. What's most compelling about empathy is that it exists in different forms, each serving its own function in social interaction. On one hand, we have emotional empathy, the deeply felt resonance we experience when someone else is in pain or joy. If a friend is grieving and your throat tightens or your chest aches alongside them, you're experiencing emotional empathy. It's the visceral connection, raw and unfiltered, that ties our emotions to the emotions of others. This form of empathy is profoundly human. It reminds us that our emotional lives are not isolated or individualistic, but shared, interwoven across invisible threads of mutual feeling. On the other hand, we have cognitive empathy, which doesn't require us to feel the same emotion, but instead helps us understand what someone else might be experiencing. It's the mental ability to map another person's perspective, to recognize their emotional state, even when we don't feel it ourselves. Cognitive empathy allows a doctor to support a patient's fear without becoming emotionally overwhelmed by it, or a leader to understand the stress of an employee without absorbing it. Both types of empathy are essential, and in balance, they allow us to show up as compassionate, grounded individuals who can connect with others while maintaining emotional boundaries. Too much emotional empathy without regulation can lead to burnout. Too much cognitive empathy without warmth can come off as clinical or cold. Social intelligence is about cultivating both, knowing when to lead with heart and when to lead with understanding. But empathy isn't just a noble ideal. It's a process grounded in neuroscience, involving specific structures within the brain that process emotional and interpersonal data. The anterior insula, for instance, lights up when we witness someone else in pain, registering their distress almost as if it were our own. It creates that bodily echo, the twinge of discomfort we feel watching someone stumble or cry. It doesn't rely on conscious thought, it's immediate, primal. Then there's the anterior cingulate cortex, a region that not only helps regulate our own emotional states but also allows us to decide how to respond to the emotions of others. If the insula rings the emotional alarm bell, the ACC decides whether we should step in with comfort, hold space in silence, or redirect the conversation. Together, these brain systems, along with the mirror neuron system, create the framework through which we feel, interpret, and respond to others' emotional experiences. And yet, empathy is not a guaranteed response. While these systems are present in all of us, their activation can vary wildly depending on experience, conditioning, and even fatigue. For example, in professions like healthcare, social work, or teaching, people often experience empathy fatigue, a numbing of emotional response caused by repeated exposure to others' suffering. Over time, the same brain circuits that once allowed them to care deeply may begin to shut down, not from apathy, but from emotional overload. This is why developing sustainable empathy requires not only practice, but also self-awareness and emotional regulation. You must learn to engage without absorbing, to care without collapsing into the feelings of others. It's not a contradiction, it's a higher level of mastery. Another challenge in developing empathy lies in empathy gaps, especially when we encounter people with drastically different perspectives, beliefs, or cultural backgrounds. Our brains are naturally wired to empathize more easily with those who resemble us, who think like us, or who belong to our perceived in-group. But this instinctual bias limits our social intelligence. To transcend it, we must actively choose to step into unfamiliar shoes, to seek understanding even when it's not immediately comfortable or intuitive. This is where cognitive empathy shines brightest. It allows us to navigate situations where emotional resonance may not be accessible, but intellectual insight is. When you hear someone share a belief that feels foreign or even offensive, it's cognitive empathy that asks, "Where is this coming from?" instead of, "How could they think that?" The good news is that empathy, both cognitive and emotional, can be cultivated through simple, powerful practices. One of the most effective is active listening. True active listening is not merely hearing, it's the practice of giving someone your full presence. That means turning away from distractions, maintaining open body language, and tuning in not just to the words being said, but to the tone, the rhythm, the pauses, the hesitations. It means listening to understand, not to respond. When we practice active listening, we send a subtle but unmistakable message. You matter. I'm here with you. I want to know how you feel. This alone can shift the emotional landscape of any conversation. Another transformative practice is perspective taking, the conscious decision to see the world through another person's eyes. This requires imagination, humility, and a willingness to surrender our assumptions. It's easy to judge a colleague's short temper until we consider that they might be dealing with invisible stress. It's tempting to label someone's quietness as rudeness until we ask ourselves what their silence might actually be saying. Perspective taking isn't about excusing poor behavior. It's about understanding the emotional context behind it. When we develop this habit, empathy becomes less reactive and more intentional. No longer a fleeting response, but a consistent lens through which we interpret others. Of course, empathy requires something even more foundational: presence. We cannot empathize if we are disconnected from the moment, distracted by devices, or consumed by our own mental chatter. Empathy is fundamentally relational. It lives in the space between you and another person. If that space is cluttered with judgment, multitasking, or self-focus, empathy cannot emerge. To practice presence is to clear that space, to quiet your mind, soften your attention, and meet another person with openness. And presence, like empathy, is not a static trait. It's a skill, one we can strengthen through mindfulness, breathwork, and the simple practice of slowing down. This brings us to another vital element of social intelligence, nonverbal communication. Because the truth is, people rarely say exactly what they mean. Most of what they communicate leaks through in other ways, through facial expressions, posture, gestures, and tone. In fact, studies suggest that as much as 93% of communication is nonverbal. That means we are constantly speaking with our bodies, even when our mouths are silent. And social intelligence involves learning to interpret that language as fluently as spoken words. Consider how a person's facial expression can reveal subtle emotional shifts, a tightening around the eyes, a flicker of tension across the brow, a forced smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These micro-expressions, which can occur in a fraction of a second, are often more honest than any spoken response. The socially intelligent individual notices these cues, not obsessively, but intuitively. Over time, this sensitivity becomes second nature, allowing you to adjust your responses with elegance and precision. Body language is another essential channel. When someone leans in, maintains open posture, or mirrors your gestures, they are often signaling engagement, openness, or alignment. In contrast, crossed arms, turned away feet, or a sudden shift in proximity may indicate discomfort, defensiveness, or disengagement. These signals are not definitive on their own, but within context, they form a vivid emotional map. Posture, movement, and spatial orientation tell us how someone feels, even when they say nothing at all. And then there's the tone of voice, one of the most emotionally charged tools we possess. The same words can communicate vastly different meanings depending on the pitch, pace, volume, and cadence with which they're spoken. "I'm fine," said flatly, might mean the opposite. A slight tremor in someone's voice might betray anxiety beneath confidence. Social intelligence allows you to tune into these subtle vibrations and respond with attuned sensitivity. Not overreacting, but recognizing that beneath every tone, there is a truth worth honoring. Understanding nonverbal cues also means developing awareness of cultural and individual differences. There is no universal dictionary for body language. What means respect in one culture may be seen as arrogance in another. Eye contact, gestures, and personal space vary widely across backgrounds and contexts. Moreover, people with different personalities or neurodivergent traits may express themselves in ways that fall outside conventional norms. Social intelligence requires that we approach these differences with curiosity rather than assumption. To be effective socially, you must become a student of nuance, asking not, "What does this mean generally?" but "What might this mean for this person, here and now?" Perhaps one of the most transformative shifts we can make in our social awareness is to start observing not just what people are doing, but how they are responding to us. When you speak, do people lean in or pull away? Do their faces light up or shut down? Do your words create space for others to speak, or do they shut conversation down? Social intelligence begins to flourish when we treat every interaction as a two-way mirror, not just reflecting others, but learning about ourselves through their reactions. Communication, after all, is never just about what we say. It's about how what we say lands. And so we arrive at one of the greatest truths of social intelligence. It's not about being liked by everyone, impressing everyone, or pleasing everyone. It's about being attuned, authentically, skillfully, and consistently to the emotional reality of the people around you. It's about creating connection without performance, influence without manipulation, power without domination. When you begin to master this, people feel it. They trust you more quickly. They open up more readily. They remember you more vividly, and perhaps most importantly, they feel better in your presence. That is the essence of social intelligence, and it's something the world needs now more than ever. Now that we've explored empathy, social attunement, and the unspoken power of body language, we arrive at one of the most important applications of social intelligence: communication. Not simply the act of speaking or exchanging information, but the art of truly connecting with others through words, tone, presence, and timing. Communication is the lifeblood of all human relationships, yet few of us have been taught how to do it well. Most people equate communication with talking, but those who are truly skilled understand that the most powerful communicators are not the ones who speak the most. They are the ones who listen with intention, respond with clarity, and express themselves in ways that land deeply and authentically. The goal is never to dominate a conversation or win a verbal exchange. The goal is to create understanding, and that requires not just expression, but mastery over the emotional layers of how we express. To begin mastering the art of communication, you must first internalize this truth. Every conversation operates on two levels. The first is the surface level, the words, the facts, the data. The second, far more important, is the emotional undercurrent, the invisible flow of trust, tension, curiosity, insecurity, openness, or fear that moves beneath the surface. Socially intelligent communication always attends to both. When someone says, "I'm not sure," the words may suggest indecision, but the tone might reveal anxiety or resentment or even a need for reassurance. If we respond only to the words, we miss the emotional truth. But when we learn to listen with both our ears and our intuition, we respond in a way that resonates because it speaks to what's really being said, not just what's being spoken aloud. This is why emotional intelligence and social intelligence are so deeply intertwined when it comes to communication. Emotional intelligence helps you understand your own inner state so you can communicate with integrity, rather than being hijacked by frustration, pride, or fear. Social intelligence helps you tune in to the emotional state of others so that your words and tone can land with empathy and precision. Together, these twin intelligences allow you to become someone others listen to, not because you demand their attention, but because your presence invites their openness. Let's break down what this looks like in practice. First, self-awareness is essential. Before you speak, especially in high-stakes conversations, it's vital to check in with yourself. What am I feeling? Am I centered? Am I reacting from ego or emotion? Am I about to express myself in a way that reflects my deeper intent? Or am I trying to control the outcome? This pause, the moment between stimulus and response, is where wisdom lives. It allows you to choose your tone, pace, and framing consciously, rather than reverting to habitual defensiveness or passive aggression. It also allows you to decide if what you're about to say is necessary, helpful, or likely to escalate the situation. Then comes active listening, one of the most underrated communication skills in existence. Listening actively means listening not to respond, but to truly understand. It means you put down your mental rebuttal and your need to sound smart and instead become fully present. You ask clarifying questions. You reflect back what you're hearing, not to parrot someone's words, but to affirm that you're grasping their meaning. This might sound simple, but in a world that prizes speed and certainty, the discipline of deep listening is rare. Yet when people feel heard, truly heard, they open up, they soften, they trust. And communication, once full of tension or misunderstanding, becomes a space of shared insight and connection. Another crucial dimension is intentional expression. Once you've listened and reflected, how you respond matters just as much as what you say. This involves tone, pacing, and framing. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," which provokes defensiveness, a socially intelligent communicator might say, "Sometimes I feel like my words aren't landing the way I hope." They might not be coming across clearly. Notice the difference. One blames, the other invites collaboration. Or rather than saying, "That idea won't work," which shuts down creativity, you could offer, "I see a couple of challenges we might need to navigate. Can we explore them together?" Social intelligence allows you to phrase things in a way that preserves the other person's dignity, which is the cornerstone of mutual respect. Much of this is made possible through emotional regulation, especially in moments of tension. When conflict arises, and it inevitably will in any relationship, It's easy to get swept up in emotional heat. Our brains revert to survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. We raise our voices, shut down, lash out, or make passive comments we later regret. But when we develop emotional regulation, we stay grounded. We breathe. We speak from clarity, not chaos. We know when to pause. We know when to ask for a break. We understand that de-escalating a situation is not the same as conceding defeat. It's choosing wisdom over reactivity. And often, just one regulated person in a conversation can shift the entire dynamic toward resolution. Social intelligence also shines in situations involving power dynamics. Whether you're leading a team, managing a relationship, or navigating high-stakes negotiations. When you're in a position of influence, every word you say carries extra weight. Your tone becomes a signal, your posture a message. A moment of impatience can shatter morale. A misjudged comment can erode trust. But a well-timed expression of humility, a moment of sincere listening, or a simple, honest apology can repair more than strategy ever could. Socially intelligent leaders don't just tell people what to do, they know how to inspire, how to de-escalate, how to empower others without making them feel small. They are not just respected, they are remembered because their communication left people feeling safer, seen, and valued. And yet we must not think of communication as confined to formal or professional spaces. Some of the most powerful expressions of social intelligence occur in intimate and personal moments. In a quiet kitchen conversation, in a moment of vulnerability with a friend, in the brief silence after someone says something they were afraid to say. These are the spaces where connection is either deepened or lost. And often what people remember is not what you said, but how they felt in your presence. Did they feel safe, seen, respected? That emotional imprint lasts far longer than any clever wordplay or well-structured argument. This brings us to one of the most advanced forms of social intelligence, empathic presence. Empathic presence is not just listening. It's not just responding kindly. It is the rare and powerful ability to be fully, emotionally present with someone, not trying to fix, judge, or change them, but simply witnessing and honoring their experience. When we offer this kind of presence, people often say things like, "I don't know why, but I feel better just talking to you," or "I've never said that out loud before." It's not magic. It's social intelligence at its highest form. It's the ability to create a container where someone else can show up fully, without fear of judgment or correction. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is what people long for in their conversations. The space to be real. To cultivate this kind of presence, we must move beyond performative listening and toward genuine attunement. This means softening our internal dialogue, quieting the part of us that's calculating what to say next. It means noticing not just words, but breath, pauses, posture, and energy. It means allowing ourselves to feel without being overwhelmed by feeling. When we meet people with this level of depth, we create interactions that are not only meaningful, but healing. Conversations become moments of transformation, not through grand gestures, but through the simple, radical act of being present with one another. Now let's not pretend this is always easy. Communication is messy, emotions flare, misunderstandings happen. There will be moments when we say the wrong thing, miss a cue, or let our ego steer the conversation. Social intelligence doesn't mean perfection, it means repair. It means noticing when things go off course and having the humility to own our part and the courage to recalibrate. I didn't show up how I wanted to in that conversation. I realized my tone was off. Can we try again? These small acts of repair are what strengthen relationships. They are the signs of someone who is not just socially skilled, but emotionally wise. Ultimately, social intelligence is not about tactics. It's about transformation. It's not about becoming someone different. It's about accessing the most effective, attuned, and authentic version of who you already are. It's about realizing that influence doesn't come from force, but from understanding. That connection doesn't come from performance, but from presence. That power doesn't come from dominance, but from empathy. And when you learn to embody this, when you begin to read others, not to control them, but to connect with them, everything changes. You'll begin to notice how trust is built in small, consistent moments, how people lean in when they feel safe, how emotions pulse beneath every exchange, and how most misunderstandings come not from what's said, but from what's unheard. You'll start to see how social dynamics operate not by accident, but by invisible rules that you now understand. You'll navigate meetings, conversations, and conflicts with a clarity and confidence that feels earned, not because you're manipulating outcomes, but because you're moving in alignment with emotional truth. And perhaps most importantly, you'll start to feel differently in your own skin, more grounded, more aware, less reactive, less tangled in the emotional noise of others. You'll notice when something's off and know how to respond. You'll stop taking things personally that aren't about you. You'll move through the world not just speaking clearly, but seeing clearly. And that clarity will make you someone others trust, respect, and remember. So this is the final invitation to not just absorb this material as information, but to integrate it as transformation. To take what you've learned and begin practicing in small ways in everyday conversations, in moments of silence, in times of conflict, and in flashes of connection. Social intelligence isn't built in a day, and it doesn't show up perfectly. But every time you pause before reacting, every time you listen with care, every time you read the room and adjust with grace, you are sharpening this skill. And as you do, you'll start to notice the world responding differently, not because you're trying harder, but because you're connecting better. You've now taken a deep dive into one of the most impactful human skills available. Not technical, not mechanical, but relational, emotional, human. And in a world that often forgets the power of that, you now carry a gift. Use it wisely, use it generously, and above all, use it to bring more understanding into every room you enter. Because once you see people clearly, you can never unsee them. And that truly changes everything.